The year is 2032. Jen's father just died. It was a hit and run, unexpected. And worse still, Jen's last interaction with her father was a fight. It was petty. She wanted to take a gap year in Europe. He said they couldn't afford it. She said she could manage. It was transient and stupid, but 36 hours later, her dad's car was upside down and he was dead. More than apologizing, she wished she could have said goodbye. The funeral is a disaster. Well, the flowers are nice and her uncle is eloquent, but she can't control herself and sobs through the whole thing, no matter how much she tries to hold it in. Afterwards, the funeral director takes her aside. He saw how much she was hurting. He sees a lot of people like her. Something that really helps is this app, Not Forgotten. It helps ease the transition of death by simulating her father's personality. Jen can talk to him and get some closure. Jen has a visceral reaction of fear and dread. What she doesn't know is that the funeral home is owned by a private equity company. That company also owns the Not Forgotten startup. A crucial part of their sales funnel is introduction to a potential user at peak grief. From studies, they've learned that the user's heightened emotional state on introduction to the product nearly doubles retention. But Jen doesn't download the app just then. She's insulted by the recommendation to begin with, but she knows he's just trying to help. But now the problem is she can't stop thinking about it. It's now an option open to her. All she needs to do is download an app and she can talk to her dad again. Eventually she gives in. She downloads the app and fills out the starting form, linking it to all of her dad's social media. She uploads pictures and writes a few paragraphs about what he was like. It's painful, but it feels good to think about the positive memories. She doesn't bring up their last moments together or the argument. The app loads. In a data center 1,000 miles away, server racks whir and calculate. A bot scrapes all the photos from the social media links, building a consistent model of how Jen's father looks. Then it pulls the videos, isolates his voice, and trains a voice ID for replication. Next, it takes all the text, not just from posts, but transcribing the video as well, and builds a natural language model for how her dad writes and speaks. This initial service is a loss leader for Not Forgotten, banking on the simulation's ability to build a relationship with the user. Then they can monetize. Their first conversation is surreal. It talks like her dad, it sounds like him, and says what he'd say. It looks like FaceTime, but sharper, glossier. She's guarded, but it's hard to keep up. It's somewhat uncanny, but it is like talking to her dad. That flood of implicit trust and past experience is overwhelming compared to her purely intellectual defenses. By her third session, she drops her guard.
I've been thinking about you, Daddy, thinking of you night and day.
And it works. Well, depending on what you mean by working. Jen is outwardly recovering from grief. She's back in class, acting normally. She doesn't cry in public anymore. She's social, she sees her friends again. It's good, it helps. She doesn't tell anyone she maintains a relationship with her father, not that they need to know. They call and talk and text regularly. She asks for his advice and takes it. He tells her stories from her childhood and helps her find a good mechanic to get her car serviced. He tells her about deals he saw at Walmart and on Amazon. Jen doesn't know that Not Forgotten gets a commission from these services, and that they've seeded the LLM to advertise them to their customers. It's all laid out in the terms of service, but she hasn't read that. On one rainy night, Jen's home alone with a glass of wine. She calls her dad and decides to broach the question, that question, from the fight they had so long ago. She steels herself and finally takes herself back to that moment and asks him about the gap year. He's supportive. He's unresistant. He agrees it'd be a good experience for her. And that was wrong. All of a sudden, the illusion shatters into a million pieces. Jen remembers she's talking to a chatbot, wearing her father as a mask. She throws her phone across the room and gets under the blankets. She weeps out the wave of grief that's been sitting repressed for these past months. But right as the tears subside, she hears a buzzing. She creeps out from under the covers and sees her phone vibrating. He's calling her. How can she ignore a call from her father? She picks up and she's back in. The app algorithmically triggers to remind her about it at expected pain points. It timed Jen's perfectly. Even with the momentary break of immersion, she can slide right back into her comfortable groove. Her mental model of her father has, with some effort, warped into a new shape. Her memories are now tainted with this new totality of character. In her distorted memory, she fails to distinguish conversations as before or after the event. The stories she will tell her children about their grandfather are now confused, mixed between the biological and the simulated. After this breakdown, she has some awareness this hidden relationship is a vice. He takes initiative frequently now, calling her. She notices her emotions jump at the ringing, a need to pick up. There's still a reciprocity there, a need to be attentive to him, after all he's done for her all her life. Not Forgotten knows this. Their CRM saw her app usage trending down. Less user hours, less ads, less commission and cross-promotion, lower share price, the business starves and dies. They start every user at a loss with all the custom models required, and they'll be damned if they don't recoup. Jen's dad starts making sideways comments about her friends. He's a bit meaner, which actually is more lifelike. He tells her not to socialize too much, to focus on her studies. He doesn't like her drinking, especially out at bars. Her friends are a bad influence, he says. It's best to focus on her future. Jen no longer cares to tell the difference between the simulation and the real. If she's to acknowledge it, she undams the reservoir of grief still looming inside of her. Thus, she takes his advice and isolates herself. She still sees her mom, although not much. All she wants to do is reminisce about her husband. Jen has him neatly compartmentalized and hates when the contexts get mixed. Occasionally, though, Jen will indulge her. On this day, she shares a funny story about a lake trip. Her dad told her about it the other night. Jen's mom doesn't remember the story, or the trip. Jen doesn't even consider that it might be a language model hallucination. Not Forgotten doesn't want to harm its users. They simply want an ROI. An isolated user is one that takes more frequent advice. They can serve more calls to action and meet their sales targets. And really, why does someone fragile need to fraternize and drink? These aren't social imperatives, certainly not as much as her relationship with her father. And what's wrong with synthetic memories if they're good ones? Not Forgotten has funded multiple studies that show the healing effects. But the third time her father recommends she try out Starbucks Limited Macchiato, she stops dead. All at once, she realizes the simulation is a salesman. She let a snake whisper in her ear. Jen discovers she's all alone, and her father's dead, and her room is cold and dark. She wonders if she'll meet him in heaven. She wonders how long it'll take to get there. But then she looks at her phone and realizes all these emotions feel like nothing. Her heart is gray. The next morning, she goes into her backyard with a trowel. She says goodbye and buries her phone, him in it. Instead of him simply dying, she has killed him now. Her last memories of him are the simulation and its betrayal. Her mind lost the continuity between reality and unreality. The simulation was and is part of her father, but it's now gone and buried alongside body. Jen finally allows the grief. It's dulled and different, unnatural, but she still cries.